Hello, my name is Alex Iles and welcome to Newcastle Castle. And in this episode we're going to be talking about what was here at the site of Newcastle Castle before there was a castle. Now, it's a simple truth that in Britain, in Europe, and in many places in the world, wherever you go and there's a good piece of land which has got favourable conditions, the likelihood is that someone has lived there before and has built on the site, so there's actually a large amount of history underneath your feet that you may not even know about. This is especially the case here at Newcastle Castle. And just to give you an idea, just next to St Nicholas's Cathedral, which you can just see over there, opposite the road, is the old post office building. And when that was constructed, they were digging out the foundations and they discovered a Neolithic or a Stone Age canoe, which had been dug out and ritually buried there on the site with large animal bones, which again shows that this area here had an important significance to people in ancient times, in the Stone Age and in that sort of period as well. Coming forwards in history, when they were excavating the area in front of me where you can see the moat in front of the Black Gate, they actually also discovered evidence of farming on the site and ploughing. So we know that people were ploughing here probably from the Bronze Age right the way through. And when they were excavating the site as well, they discovered Stone Age axes and flint as well. So there were definitely people living and working in this site from the Stone Age right the way through to the Iron Age, when in the surrounding areas we know there are Iron Age roundhouses and farms in and around the castle area. As we come into recorded history though, we've got a different story on this site. And right now you can notice that there's cobblestones amongst the stone paving in front of me. And those cobblestones actually mark out the location of the Roman fort of Pontus Aelius. Now, Pontus is the Latin word for bridge and Aelius is Emperor Hadrian's surname. And this here was the Roman fort that was built into Hadrian's wall after the construction of the wall. So Hadrian's Wall started and was built across the country and from a wall's end right the way across to the Solway Firth. And when they built this amazing frontier, they built a number of forts into the wall. And at a later period, they added additional forts. So right here at the location where we now today have Newcastle Castle, they built a fort called Pontus Aelius. And when they built this fort, it was later upgraded to stone. And the troops stationed here were initially German troops from the Rhineland called the Cunganorum. They were later then changed to a British unit called the Corvonai, and they're very interesting because of the fact that they're the only British unit on Hadrian's Wall. Just over here we have a reconstructed Roman altar as well, just can be seen on the ground, and this is a reconstructed Roman altar that represents the Roman altars that were seen and or found down in the River Tyne when they were dredging the River Tyne in the 1880s. Now, there was one Roman altar dedicated to Neptune and the other to Oceanus. So you've got one dedicated to the Roman god of the seas and the other dedicated to the Roman god of the oceans. And this was a really clever play by Emperor Hadrian, because we believe that when Emperor Hadrian came up here himself, he dedicated these shrines in Pontus Aelius on the bridge that crossed between the north and the south bank of the river, and there would have been a small, maybe a temple or a dedication point there. But he was actually highlighting a previous historical event that had happened around about 400 years earlier for him. Now, when Alexander the Great had got to near the end of his conquests, he also set up two shrines to Oceanus and Neptune, saying, I have reached the ends of the earth. So similarly, here in the northeast of England, Emperor Hadrian, when he was dedicating these shrines to Oceanus and Neptune, was saying, I have got to the end of the earth. This is as far as you can go. And so right here at Pontus Aelius and the building of Hadrian's Wall, we can see a Roman emperor copying the Greek conqueror Alexander the Great in what he had done. Now we're going to move forwards in history, and as we move forwards in history, right here you can see some stones in the ground, and these are ruins that actually mark out where there was an Anglo-Saxon church on this site. Now this Anglo-Saxon church, we're not entirely sure of its name, but this would have been built into the ruins of the Roman fort, and there are two Anglo-Saxon churches on this site. So when the Romans left Britain and they left the whole area of northern England, the Germanic peoples migrated into the east coast of Britain, and they took over many Roman sites because of the prestige and the honor that was associated with the Roman Empire. And so these sites became very important, and quite often churches were built in and around Roman forts. So right here, this was an Anglo-Saxon church that was then built and then rebuilt on this site. And you can actually see gravestones in front of me. And those gravestones would have been very important at the time because they would have marked out important people who were buried in and around the church. In fact, you can actually see quite a rare thing, which is a hogback. And that's a hogback which would have been from the 9th century and quite very much associated with Scandinavians and Danish burials here in the British Isles. And also Norwegian burials as well. But when they excavated around the castle in the 1970s, they actually discovered over 660 burials. So when you have all of these burials around here, we know that there's a very active community in and around Newcastle. And that makes a lot of sense because we know there were quite a few settlements in and around the area that would become Newcastle, including across in Gateshead. Slightly further along, you have Elsick, you have Benwell, and to the east as well, you also have Pandon, which is another substantial town or village. So all of these local settlements may have brought their dead to the location of the previous Roman fort and buried them here. But we have 660 burials on the site, and that's only on the area that was excavated. So there are probably many more burials in and around this location. And in fact, when they were doing some work on the road layout and putting in a cycle lane, they discovered a mother and child burial. So we know that there are even more burials to be discovered in and around here of this Anglo-Saxon graveyard. So on this site here, we've got a range of history ranging from the Ice Age and the Stone Age right the way through to the Roman period, and then after the Roman period into the Anglo-Saxon period, telling the story of this site around the castle and how it's been occupied by so many different people and being significant to different groups, from, Stone Age people burying a canoe with animal bones, which comes across as a sort of like a sacrifice or an offering to local river spirits, through to the Romans who have built a defensive barrier in northern Britain, and then the Anglo-Saxons who have chosen this site to build a church and bury their dead on this location. And then the Normans come along and build a castle because it again becomes a defensive position that's important to them, and that's the role that they need in this area. So it's a very interesting one when you have a look at all of this history on the site and why Newcastle's castle has got all of these layers of history even before you get to the castle itself. This is a fantastic medieval fortress that was fought over in the Anglo-Scottish Wars between English and Scottish kings, and was a powerful fortress in its own right in the Middle Ages. It tells the story of knightly families and lords' families who fought again from both sides between England and Scotland and have their own amazing stories to tell. Over here as well, you can see a rich and vibrant history dating from the Stone Age through to the Roman fort of Pontus Aelius, which is underneath our very feet, and into a very wonderful medieval story right up here as this growing town developed into the modern city we see today, and a fortress that fought in the English Civil War between royalists and parliamentarians. It's also got a more modern history as well, having been used as an air raid shelter in the Second World War, and then over the years has been transformed into a fantastic museum that I can heartily suggest as a location where you should come and visit during any time in Newcastle. I really hope that you'll enjoy this series and that you'll join me throughout all of the episodes to discover about this amazing fortress in the northeast of England. So why don't you like and subscribe, share the video with your friends, and if you'd like to support me further, I also have a Ko-fi account and a Patreon account down in the description. That just means I can set aside time for these episodes and to really focus on bringing the history to life for you, as you can see I obviously have a passion for. In the meantime though, stay safe and well, and thank you so much.